That was a nice move by Pipkins, taking it right to the rack himself. Wide open three, left wing, and it's good. Nylon, the dunk likes that, Matt.
A three from the right side, and it's good! The one, Pipkins, the man, yet again.
Hello and welcome to The Flex. I'm Matt St. Jean.
And this is Joe Howie.
And this is your second straight win for the Providence Friars, taking this one 71-55 over Butler, avenging that 70-64 loss out at Hinklefield House just a week ago. The headline of this one, David Duke, 22 points, 13 rebounds, a career high in rebounds, 8 assists. What a game.
Yeah, Matt, definitely a very well-rounded approach here. I think, we give a lot of the other players the benefit of the doubt, and we don't really go too in-depth in David Duke. We have definitely brought it to the surface that he is this team's star, but I think when you look at this game, you cannot help but talk about David Duke. The national media covers him a lot, and we cover him, but not in depth. But for this game, you got to look at your point guard, your combo guard, the star, the leader. He led the team today, and 17 first half points, man. I thought he was going to reach 40 today at one point.
Yeah, he is something special. Unfortunately, from everything we're seeing right now, he's not going to be in Friartown much longer, so soak it up while you can. 9 of 11 from the field. So this isn't even about volume. He's just hitting everything, and he's getting himself good looks.
There was a point in the first half. He had 17 points. He was perfect from the field, 7 for 7, with 7 rebounds. And I was looking at my brother. I was like, this guy's going to go to the league. And then there was this one shot. He went full head of steam up the court and just finger rolled it in. I was like, wow, this guy can get his shot wherever and whenever he wants. I mean, the only time is if he's smothered on defense, he's probably not going to make the shot. But even then, it's a 50-50 toss-up because he is playing at an elite level. And depending on how he plays this weekend at Creighton, I think on Monday he should be in the conversation for Big East Player of the Year. You want to talk about Colin Gillespie, Marcus Zagorowski, Sandro Mamukelashvili. You got to throw David Duke in that conversation as well. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that right there is going to be a massive test. Duke against Zagorowski. That's the game of the week in the Big East. One of the other things that stood out to me about this one, we've talked a little bit about how the Friars have to find what their rotation is. It seems to me like they have the 6 guys they want to go with. Of the 71 points that were scored, you had 69 of them from your starters, only 2 bench points. You've got Jimmy Nichols into that starting lineup. And your bench points came from Gant. You had 6 players that played at least 14 minutes. And then you have Horkler and Croswell giving you some minutes off the bench here and there, but I think the rotation is pretty clear at this point.
Yeah, and I think, Matt, that's a great point. Cooley made this very clear after the TCU game and after the Seton Hall game that he liked the energy that Nichols and Gant brought off the bench. I'm a big fan of the starting Nichols move because I just didn't think Horkler was comfortable in that role. If Horkler's a less than 10-minute role player off the bench, then so be it. But I think Nichols has definitely earned his way into the starting 5. And hey, Gant, he had a couple of mistakes. I mean, he's got to brush those off, but he was, actively fighting on the glass. Him, Watson, we'll get to Watson in a minute, but a great game from him. Gant, Watson, Nichols were active on the glass, as was Duke, who led the team in rebounds with 13. But again, a really well-rounded approach. I like the length that we have between Gant and Watts and Nichols shifting at that 4 spot. And Croswell wasn't his night, but when he is on, he's a great 5 to 10 minute sub for Nate.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I mean, Croswell's younger. He'll develop. So that's more of a, you give him some minutes now and he'll be part of the picture next season. I think with Nichols and Gant, what they give you over Horkler, first and foremost, defense. This was the best game on defense Providence has played this season. And I think that's probably the biggest reason why the Friars were so comfortable the whole way through.
Yeah, Matt, I think, and I still hold this true, if you hold a team to under 60 points in conference play, with a few exceptions, I think you win the game. I mean, there are some games Providence Villanova last year, we beat them 58-54, and we held ourselves to under 60 points. But on average, I think if you hold a Big East opponent to under 60 points, you're more likely to win the game. I think it's just what it comes down to.
Here's a stat for you on that. Going back to that game, the Friars held Villanova to 18 points in that first half, and then the Friars held Butler to 18 points in the first half tonight. That's the last time the Providence had a number anywhere close to that when it came to a 1/2 total for points allowed. And yeah, Butler 55 in this game, Villanova had 54 in that last one. If you get a half of defense like that, you're in real good shape.
Yeah, that first half defense by the Friars was spectacular, and I think one of my favorite stats from the first half is that Duke and Watson had a combined 25 points. The two stars on our team were outscoring Butler's entire roster at that point, so I thought that was really, really comforting to hear after what was a shaky performance at best over DePaul. I mean, looking back at that game, you could pick a lot of stuff out, but I think this was a great, great defensive bounce back. I think out of the 40 minutes, I'm happy with 35 of them. There was a period in the second half where Butler went on that little run, Matt. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, in between the 6 and 3 minute mark.
They made things a little bit hairy, a little bit interesting for a minute, but the Friars sealed them off, and that's where the work you do for the first 35 minutes pays off.
And by the way, I think what ended that Butler run was a timeout by Cooley, which was a great call. I think he got his team a little more composed in that timeout. First play out of the timeout is you dump it to Nate for a quick bucket. That's what we didn't do 7 days ago at Hinkle Fieldhouse, and I'm so happy that's the play we called, because right now Nate is probably the smoothest constant on this team. He scores in double figures every night. He throw in a couple of rebounds, and you know exactly what you're going to get with him. He continues to improve. He's one of the most composed paint players I've ever seen. And last week, we didn't use him properly in the second half when Butler was kind of pulling away. Tonight, we saw a very similar thing. Butler had a little bit of a surge. Instead of scrambling and trying to find some unsettled outside shot, you give it to the big man, you get a high percentage look, and you walk away, a little more stable with a thicker lead.
No, you're spot on, and I think that's one of the things that stood out about the Friars. They got the shots that they wanted to. This team was incredibly efficient shooting from the floor. If you go down the starters, Watson had 18 points on 9 of 12 from the field, 75% of his shots. Reeves, 12 points on 4 of 8 from the field, so he's hitting 50%. Duke, 22 on 9 of 11. Bynum, 12 on 3 of 8. He's under 50%, sure, but he also got to the line, shot 6 free throws, and made all of them. And then Nichols, he only took 3 shots, but he made 2 of them. And he got 5 points. He got the extra one with the free throw there. So from those 5 starters, if you're hitting shots like that, 1, you're confident. 2, you're taking the shots you want to be taking.
Yeah, Matt, a note about Nichols. I think foul trouble plagued him a little bit. I think had he not picked up those quick 2 fouls in the first half, he probably would have gotten some more playing time and, padded the stat sheet a little more. But I think between him and Gant, you want to see that scoring go up. Bynum going perfect from the stripe is really pleasing to me. I'm big on the small fundamentals of basketball. I think you need to make your free throws. And you said it was 6 for 6. I think that's fantastic. I mean, it's 6 points, and, in a big win like this, you may not think 6 points is a lot. But if we didn't have those 6 points, we'd be like, oh, okay. It was a little closer than we thought. So, again, they're free. Make them. A.J. Reeves, and this point I want to make goes back to our guest, John Fanta, from our pregame podcast. John Fanta brought up a great point about when AJ has his feet set, he's a much better three-point shooter than when he is off balance. And, Matt, what did we see tonight from AJ Reeves?
Oh, he was great. There was one play, I think it was in the second half. Joe, you're probably thinking of the exact same moment I am. He got the ball on the right wing, and there was nobody around him. You could see him. He took a second. He's wiggling his feet around and making sure they're right where he wants them to be. Elevate, swish. Easy. That's what you want to see from him.
I watched him do that, and immediately I heard John Fanta saying the thing about Reeves and his feet being set. It rang through my head as soon as I watched him wiggle his feet and hop into that. I was like, this is going in. There was, I think, one shot, it was late in the second half, where Reeves was like off balance, and it's because he had a defender right in his face. That was the only three-pointer that he took that I saw that was off balance. Other than that, I thought he was great. I think Sunday was a great bounce back win for him, and this is, while he wasn't as high in scoring as he was on Sunday, I think this is all right, I'm back kind of game. Like, you had a big busting the stat sheets, I'm gonna push us to OT kind of game for him. Now it's like, all right, I'm not scoring as much, but I'm scoring the ball the way that I want to, and I think that's all you wanted from him today, is to score in double figures and to do it confidently.
Yeah. Now I wanna look at this a little bit long term for a second. I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Joe. There's something called the 12 factors for the NCAA tournament.
Hmm.
It's a number of metrics to measure if you have a chance at winning an NCAA tournament. And it's things like having an offense in the top 25, a defense in the top 40. One of the things that's important is 4 players averaging in double digits. If you want to look around the Big East, look no further than Villanova. This is a team that always does that. They play a small lineup. Why? Because 4 of their 5 starters are going to have good games and score double digits. That's what I saw from the Friars tonight. You had 4 starters in double digits. You go out there, you play a short bench, you get the shots you want, and you play good defense. It's not a perfect game. You turned the ball over too much, gave up too many rebounds, but all in all, you controlled the game, played the way you wanted to do it, and you did it with your starters. This right here is the team that was projected to finish third in the Big East, and if this team continues to show up, then they should be ranked and they should make noise whenever the tournament happens.
Yeah, I think everything you just said is spot on. I'll start with the negatives. I think, rebounding still needs to improve, especially on the defensive side. There was one possession where Butler extended it, like, I think it was 3 or 4 times, because we were just sloppy with rebounding the basketball. Given the same 5 guys had been on the floor for 12 minutes straight, so I understand it. I'm not happy about it, but I understand it. Turnovers, you just got to clean it up, be more crisp with the basketball. Again, that goes back to fatigue, but I love the well-rounded approach that you bring up, Matt, about 4 out of 5 starters. I'll use this reference again when we upset Villanova on our floor February 14th, however many years ago. We had 5 guys in double figures, and normally when we have a well-rounded game, a big win game, any kind of game that you're happy about with Providence, really, you have multiple guys scoring in double figures. I think tonight having 4 out of 5 of the starters is the epitome of what you want from your guys.
Yeah, this is what you expected out of this group. 14 offensive rebounds for Butler. That's the highest they've had since their second game last season. A lot of that comes from the fact that they shot a lot of threes, and you get weird rebounds off that. I mean, that possession you were talking about, Joe, so many of those were just weird rebounds. It's not that you're in a bad spot, just sometimes the ball doesn't go where you think it's going to go. So that's going to happen sometimes. Turnovers, definitely have to clean them up. Everybody that played except for Horkler had a turnover. And you got Duke had 2 steals, but 3 turnovers. Nichols had a steal, but 2 turnovers. Bynum had a steal and a turnover. Those are the little things where if you play this game against Villanova, you might lose by 5 because some of that stuff. But you play this game against any team outside of the top 25, you're going to win.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, Matt, because in that late second half surge by Butler where they almost cut it to single digits, I thought to myself, if this was Creighton on Saturday, Villanova, Marquette, Xavier, any of other of the upper top tier teams in the Big East, I think we would have gone into panic mode a little bit more than we did. I think, Butler last week, they played very, very well against us. That might have been their best performance of the season. I think we saw, tonight Butler settle into, what is more appropriate and characteristic for this team. But again, if you allow a team to get a late second half surge run on you like that, and it's not someone from the basement of the Big East, you can't take it so nonchalantly.
No. I do say Cooley was definitely pleased about this win. He said after the game he's going to go home, grab a slice of pizza, put his feet up, and turn on that Creighton tape. That's the game of the week. This is the most important game of the season so far this year for the Friars, and you're going to get the full rundown on that one in our next episode. Any final thoughts, Joe?
Watson, Duke, Reeves, get that billboard on I-95. I don't know who you got to pay. You got to talk to Bob Driscoll or Steve Napolillo or something, but that billboard needs to go up.
Yeah, and you can't leave out you can leave Bynum off the billboard, but you can't leave him out when you're talking about this game. 12 points, 6 assists. That's what you want out of a starting point guard. This was, again, we said it a couple times this year. This was his best game as a Friar, and I would say the best game for the Friars this season.
I'd say it's definitely up there. I think it's one of our more well-rounded games. I'd put maybe TCU or Seton Hall up there in contention as well. Just a quick note about Bynum. I know we're going long here.
Mhm.
Early on in the broadcast, they said that Cooley mentioned how Bynum is very critical of himself and like second guess things a lot. Matt, I don't know if you know what I'm going to say here, but who does that remind you of in Friars point guard history?
Cartwright or Pipkins?
Cartwright.
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing right now, and there's obviously a lot of differences between these two players, but is the molding phase of Bynum into a Cartwright-esque point guard for this team. He's very critical, which means he's a perfectionist, which means he's not going to stop working until he thinks his game is perfect. But as all perfectionists go, it's never going to be perfect. So he's going to keep building and working until he feels that he's reached his best game or his best performance, which I really like out of the floor general. I think there are some pros and cons to it, which is for another podcast entirely, but I like that, he's being self-critical of himself. I think that shows that he's able to identify where his strengths are and where his weaknesses lie. So that's just a point I wanted to bring up. I think that was a really nice tidbit they brought up on the broadcast. But again, to close things out, a very well-rounded approach. I'm pleased with the way we played on offense, and I'm pleased with 35 out of the 40 minutes of defense tonight.
Well, you heard it from us. Friars take this one 71-55, and will return to action at noon this Saturday against Creighton from Alumni Hall. That game is going to be on Fox, so make sure you don't miss it. Make sure you don't miss anything from us. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us wherever you're listening to this to make sure you can stay up to date. And, as always, thank you for listening.
7-3 overall, 3-1 in conference. Go Friars.